is the weirdest thing to me. Democrats say that it is racist to believe, well, they say it's racist to do anything. I had a Diet Mountain Dew yesterday and one today. I'm sure they're going to call that racist too, but it's good. I love you guys.
Okay.
The JD Vance pick, this is what Democrats wanted, for him to pick JD Vance. JD Vance is, a security blanket with a beard. He has exactly the same base as Donald Trump. It doesn't expand the map. He was going to win Ohio anyway. His policies are the same: protectionist, America first, anti-NATO, throw Ukraine to the wolves.
Oh, that's gotta hurt!
Beard, no beard, spine, no spine. I'll just let Mitt Romney sum up my thoughts on Trump's VP pick, JD Vance.
Mitt Romney once famously said, "I don't know that I can disrespect someone more than JD Vance."
Trump did the least surprising thing ever and opted for the generic white dude who echoes his rhetoric to be his VP after the other generic white dude's life was threatened as a result of the rich white dude in charge, so refused to endorse that same rich white dude as he attempts to run again post-insurrection. In case you needed caught up.
Clear on this point. It wasn't just that they asked for a pause. The president specifically asked me, and his gaggle of crackpot lawyers asked me to literally reject votes.
But it seems this choice isn't going over well, not even, and get this, on Fox News of all places. First, regular guest host Brit Hume pointed out what many online have over the past few days. This is a guy who once referred to Trump as America's Hitler before developing an impressive tolerance for snake oil and boot soles. He went on to say that the only reason that JD Vance got the job is because he sucked up the most. I mean, I wouldn't say the most though, right? Tim Scott literally made up a wife, for crying out loud.
The news we have been waiting for throughout the day has just been made. This is an announcement on Truth Social by former President Trump. He has selected Ohio Senator JD Vance as his vice presidential pick.
Some people may look at this and remember what JD Vance used to say about Donald Trump. And he was a hardcore never Trumper not very many years ago. And he reversed himself completely not that long ago. And, one of the things you worry about is when somebody's making a pick for a potential president if something happens to him, then you think, well, is this person, how did he get the job? Did he get it because he was really the best qualified to be president, or did he get it because he sucked up effectively to the nominee? People will have questions about that.
But it was during another Fox segment that I wanted to highlight, where Jessica Tarlov reminded her panelists of how terrible a choice this was when you take into account the campaign as a whole. Considering the people that Trump appeals to, it's no secret that there are many moderate Republicans who cannot tolerate the chaos and vitriol that accompanies a Trump presidency. See the percentage of Republicans who are still voting for Nikki Haley even after she dropped out as an example.
It was real. I think the Nikki Haley factor is real. You look at it, Indiana's a small state. By the way, it's Mike Pence's home state. It's a red state. Went for Trump in 2016, went for Trump in 2020. 11 electoral votes, so not a huge number there. But still, if he's missing out on 100,000 votes in a state like that, and then 155,000 in Pennsylvania 2 weeks ago, you can't tell me that he doesn't have a problem with Nikki Haley voters.
So choosing someone just as inflammatory, even if he's just repeating what Trump says, isn't going to further that case, as Tarlov pointed out.
In terms of the JD Vance pick, this is what Democrats wanted, for him to pick JD Vance. JD Vance is, a security blanket with a beard for Donald Trump. And I know the beard was a big point of contention, and I'm glad that he is willing to give the facial hair a chance there. He has exactly the same base as Donald Trump. It doesn't expand the map. He was going to win Ohio anyway. His policies are the same: protectionist, America first, anti-NATO, throw Ukraine to the wolves.
What people should know about JD Vance is he's genuinely an amazing human being. He's a great friend.
And this is one of the great tricks that I think the sexual revolution pulled on the American populace, which is this idea that, like, well, okay, these marriages were fundamentally, they were maybe even even violent, but certainly they were unhappy. And so getting rid of them and making it easier for people to shift spouses like they change their underwear, that's going to make people happier in the long term. And maybe it worked out for the moms and dads, though I'm skeptical, but it really didn't work out for the kids of those marriages. And I think that's what all of us...
Not to forget that he's not even a true MAGA alternate fact spewer. I mean, he's just a disgruntled liberal, mad that his movie wasn't received well by critics, so he picked up his morals and ran across the street to the far right section.
But I also think, that there's something comparable, between abortion and slavery, and that...
Kind of like Ben Shapiro when his dream of becoming a screenwriter didn't work out. I know that's hard to fathom from the genius behind the blockbuster Lady Ballers, but Vance was chosen because he's proven there's no bar too low. He'll feast on his own words that were so well documented and lengthy that it took Fox News host Brett Baier quite some time to run through them.
So my fear is, I think Donald Trump is not the right candidate for this group of voters. I think that this election is really having a negative effect, especially on the white working class, right? Because I think a lot of these grievances are legitimate, but what it's doing is it's giving people an excuse to point the finger at someone else. It's point the finger at Mexican immigrants or Chinese trade or the Democratic elites or whatever else. And sometimes these villains are legitimate. I think it's totally fair to say that the policy elites of the Democratic Party haven't been totally concerned about the white working class. But at the same time, fundamentally what's going on and what Donald Trump has done is change the focus of the white working class from a sort of engaged and constructive politics to a politics of pointing the finger.
I know you've been asked about this before, about past comments that you've made about Donald Trump. You've said, I'm a never Trump guy, never liked him. Terrible candidate, idiot if you voted for him, might be America's Hitler, might be a cynical a-hole, cultural heroine, noxious and reprehensible. Those are things that the left is going to come after you, and they're probably going to be put in ads should you be chosen as the VP pick.
So Vance has just proven that he's willing to do anything to sit at the table, which, as we know with Project 2025, the only requirement needed is an allegiance to Trump.
So you're not troubled by the sexual assault and defamation. Let me ask you about January 6th. You've been mentioned as a possible vice president for Donald Trump. Had you been vice president on January 6th, would you have certified the election results?
Oh, George, this is such a ridiculous question, in part because the law has changed here. We, of course, had
I didn't ask you about going forward. I asked you what you would have done. I asked you what you would have done.
George, here's what I think. Here's what I think happened in 2020. And I know you guys are obsessed with talking about this. I have to make a point here. You constantly say to people like me, why do you talk about January the 6th? Why do you talk about the election of 2020? And then you ask about us multiple times during a 6-minute interview. But look, you asked the question and I'll answer it. Do I think there were problems in 2020? Yes, I do. Do I think it was a problem that big technology companies working with the intelligence services censored the presidential campaign of Donald Trump? Yes. Do I think it's a problem that Pennsylvania changed its balloting rules in the middle of the election season in a way that even some courts in Pennsylvania have said was illegal? Yes, I think these were problems, George, and I think there is a political solution to those problems. So litigating which slate of electors was legitimate, I think is fundamentally the political solution to the problems that existed in 2020. It's a reasonable debate to have, and I find it weird, George, that people like you obsess with what I call what happened in 2020. You're so incurious about what actually happened in 2020, which is why so many people mistrust our elections in this country. We've got to do better, George.
I'm not the least bit incurious. In fact, you laid out a litany there, but you didn't answer the question I asked. Would you have certified the election results had you been vice president?
If I had been vice president, I would have told the states like Pennsylvania, Georgia, and so many others that we needed to have multiple slates of electors, and I think the U.S. Congress should have fought over it from there. That is the legitimate way to deal with an election that a lot of folks, including me, think had a lot of problems in 2020. I think that's what we should have done.
So it's very clear you would have done what Donald Trump asked you to do there, not what Vice President Mike Pence did.
And the nominees for most shameless Republican desperate for a seat at the table are Ted Cruz and his performance in Sure He Called My Wife Ugly, but watch the applause that never ends. And last but certainly not least, the frontrunner, JD Vance in Pick Me, America's Hitler.
Yeah, well, I think that's absolutely right. It's not just that Donald Trump doesn't speak to issues of special concern to minority voters or black voters, it's that he seems to like actively antagonizing a lot of the black voters. I actually think Trump is a much better model of statesman, which is he's tough, He's funny.
And the winner is JD Vance for Pick Me America's Hitler. Your prize is a $60 Bible and 2 complimentary tickets to a, quote, all-black church event held by your cult leader.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.